Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L. Just finished Mahoka, and now I'm on Dan Machi, season 3, episode 3, I believe. Let me just make sure I got the right number. Yeah, S3E3. Okay, cool. So this episode was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. I thought it looked pretty. So just to give you the background information on the novel here, what you need to know is that what we essentially saw here was the climax for volume 9. That's why it looks so pretty at the end. So this one was kind of interesting in that the climax was a fake fight. You don't usually get that as a climax for light novel volumes or novels in general. So it was really neat to see. What that means for next week, we still have a few pages of Volume 9 that we need to cover. They're pretty critical. What ends up happening is that Volume 9 lacks a real antagonist because of the way that Volume 9, 10, and 11 were written. So, next week, we should be getting a little bit of the end of Volume 9, and we should get a little bit of the beginning of Volume 10, which will be pretty awesome. Will be pretty cool. And, yeah. But in terms of that, yeah, this was the climax. If you couldn't tell because of the fights here, and in that term, like I think it was pretty neat. There's a lot of really cool little things you can talk about when it comes to the structure of Volume 9, 10, and 11. And this episode kind of shows off one of the things, but it's easier to talk about it with a book because as an anime viewer, you won't really notice where exactly the cutoff lines for the books and the anime are unless you know like novel structure really well. So it's a little bit hard to talk about it for the anime, but just know for the book itself, it was a unique experience, and it was again cool to know what the author was thinking as they were writing these particular volumes in the author notes. Anyway, we've talked about the general structure. This was the climax for Volume 9. But what about the top moments? Actually, I got a few top moments here that I think are worth talking about. So let's begin. My first top moment is a bit of a bonus moment because it doesn't really matter in the long run, but we got to see the head of the guild, that little dwarf guy. So this guy was a bigger deal in terms of introduction, and it's unfortunate that the introduction wasn't able to carry over here. So Aina has a lot more fear of this man, and I think he was characterized to be a little bit more greedy. He was, I think, I believe in the novel, he was characterized to be a little bit more penny pinching. He has a big presence. He's a big deal. When Aina had this moment, man, I hope that's her name. She talked more about the hierarchy within the guild. She gave a little bit more build up. She made this man seem a little bit more, well, impressionate than the anime did. And so this guy's relationship going forward, I do believe he pops up a little bit more because he is a big deal within the guild. It is just unfortunate that his presence isn't able to come through in the anime because again, the reason for that is because that was a lot of the third person narrator telling us why this guy was a big deal and showing it through Aina's behavior, and that didn't really come through in this episode. So that's one of the unfortunate things here. Keep an eye out for the character. I don't recall if he shows up more, but he's important in terms of the structure of the guild. And I do believe that the novel might have touched on his relationship to Uranus, or it might have like made it seem like he had a connection to him. I mean, like at the end of the day, he has to get a letter from somewhere, right? Anyway, just wanted to say that there. My next top moment was Aina wanting to be of help, but Belle saying no. So the reason that that particular thing is important is because, again, Belle has a bunch of romantic plot lines with a bunch of characters we're going to get with, and Aina's one of them. And her plot line really revolves around wanting to be of help to Belle. I believe that she might have had a short story in one of the earlier volumes. But anyway, the thing here with Aina is that this is one of the few little moments she gets within the volume to characterize her relationship with Belle, and this little moment here was important for her own personal development. So when she ultimately looks dejected, just take that away. I'm just putting it as a top moment because it has to be. I want to make sure it's driven home that this character's romantic plotline with Belle was forwarded in this particular part here, where she wants to be of help, but her heart is hurting because Belle doesn't. Well, Belle doesn't trust her enough to make use of her in professional degrees. Moving on, we have another little romantic moment, that being the Haruhime and Belle moment that involved Lily pulling on Haruhime's tail. So, there's a bunch of girls who like Belle. So Haruhime is stepping up there. Haruhime is the bravest of the girls, after Hestia in a way. And what I really want to talk about here is just this is again Belle and Haruhime for this uh, light novel or for this volume, their relationship was developed from the perspective of these two are Wine's parents, right? So they have the most to do with Wine in terms of emotional investment. And here you had Haruhime following up on development from her volume, which featured Belle having doubts over whether or not he should protect someone that a hero traditionally does not protect. So in terms of the thematics, Haruhime does actually have a lot to say about the Wine thing. So when she's giving his advice to Belle, it actually does carry a lot of weight because at the end of the day, Belle's conflict here is once again on the nature of what heroes should be doing. And again, traditionally, heroes do not protect monsters, which is unfortunate. So, that's why that particular moment carries weight. And also, in terms of romantic plot lines, this is a continuation of Haruhime's plot line because she is reaffirming Belle on his choices. And those are the choices that ultimately led to her affection for Belle. Now, we're pretty much at the end of the volume. It's just worth pointing this out because this was the nature of the romantic development that Haruhime got for this particular volume. We go to moment 3 here for me, and that was Hestia meeting Fels. So this is just a cool moment because Hestia drops that there's something going on with this guy that's a little bit more different because Fels talks about it too. I'm just going to show you this little image of Fels' hand here. Just see if you can figure out what's going on with Fels, because the anime did give us enough clues here. And I mean, just the general aesthetic of Fels, you can probably figure it out. Going to the next top moment, the detail that Wine was being targeted exclusively. So we talked a little bit about this earlier, that the Xenos have some problems with monsters. But this episode was important in that it told us that there is a hierarchy, unfortunately, and that the monsters are more willing to attack the Xenos than they are adventurers. So that's a little bit terrifying. And it's just interesting that the hierarchy exists. Now, the reason this is also a top moment is because of what this did to the rest of the fight. What you had to understand here is that we have an irregular fight because of the climax of the book and the nature of the book. We have a fake fight. So what this ultimately did is that as you have the characters moving into this last little bit of the dungeon, that little detail that they give you about, hey, Ween is in a lot of danger here, was actually really critical because you have a volume that's focused around this little girl. You're going into danger, and then all of a sudden you're told that unfairly this girl's going to be targeted. That just makes the final little moment where everyone's having a pretty hard fight a little bit scarier because we all know, like, oh shit, well, we're all being countered, and this poor girl we know has a mark on her head or something. For some reason, these people are targeting her more. It just serves to up the scale. It serves to up the danger a little bit, or at least play with the reader's viewpoint on what exactly is going to happen here. So it was a tool that was ultimately there to give us some information about the dungeon and also give us a little bit more tension. Because in this case, again, if Wine dies, like, the whole thing's a bust pretty much. My next thought moment was the monster attack and the fight. I think this is just cool in general. It was cool to see all the different monsters showing up. It was cool to see people fighting. It was cool to see Welf and Mikoto coming in there and being really awesome and being useful. It was cool to see Wayne protecting Haruhime with her wing. Ultimately, we got to see everyone being useful, and that's always worthwhile. And of course, we had some pretty epic animation with Belle delivering the final punch. My final top moment was the handshake, because the handshake, that's where a lot of things were going on. With the handshake, you had Belle. He was hesitant. This monster had given out the hand. You had Belle focusing on his fangs and his claws, because those are the symbol of what make a monster a monster. Those are the dangers of a monster. So it was really cool to see that. It was really cool to see Belle having that struggle. Because again, the big struggle for Belle here is that he's ultimately still afraid of Wine, even though he's trying to rationalize it. When he looks back at Wine, I think he did it in this scene, he's looking at her and he's thinking, like, I can't say no to this handshake, even though I'm scared, because that would ultimately mean I'm scared of Wine, right? So Belle has a lot of struggles here in this particular moment. So that handshake was actually a pretty big moment. And again, it was important because it again shows Belle's own weaknesses when it comes to this particular situation. One of the things that you have to take away from this is that the kid is very much terrified of what he has to do. And even in a moment where it should be a nice moment of peace and coexistence between two groups, when Belle knows that they're good people at that point, it just goes to show how much the fear of monsters has been ingrained in the little human boy. So ultimately, I think really valuable moment. It's a really big moment, even though Belle did it and he was terrified out of his pants. it's still a good moment, and I do look forward to the future here. And finally, the episode, not really a top moment, but we find out that Uranus wants monsters and people to come, or the Xenos and people to come and coexist. So that's just a good thing to know what exactly Uranus wants out of all this coexistence between the smart monsters and regular people. I think that's a wonderful goal. Anyway, that was episode 3 of Machi. I think the episodes have been really nicely paced. I don't think we're really losing out on all that much information. I think the most that you lose out on are Bell's conflicts, but it really depends on the episode. Like in this episode, you get a pretty good sense of Bell. Like you get a good sense of what's going in his mind. Like the anime does a pretty good job of conveying the general thought process going through Bell's mind of seeing these monsters, being scared, looking at Weena, like reminding himself why he's doing the things he's doing, and taking that leap forward. When Bell grabs that hand, he's essentially taking that first leap forward towards coexistence, and that's really worthwhile. Of course, the opening spoils a lot. You see that Bell ultimately stands with the monsters, and now as we go into the next week's episode, we know that we have various plot elements going on. We have Hermes in the background trying to catch the other boys. We have Dax, whatever his name is, Dix, I think, following Hestia. How is this all going to turn out? Who knows? But yeah, I think a really good episode of Machi. Everyone, let me know what you thought down below, and until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.